You have missed a question on the test. So let's look through and review a prerequisite skill. We're going to look at the meaning of proportion. Proportions are two equal ratios that form a proportion. Both sides or both ratios in a proportion use the same units. For example, 1/2 is equal to 3/4. That means it is a proportion. Let's look at example 1. So, do 4/5 and 12/15 form a proportion? Well, we can look at this and we can say, looking at the numerators, what times 4 would equal 12? Well, if we look over here, 4 times 3 would equal 12. What times 5 would equal 15? Well, if we look over here, 5 times 3 would equal 15. So what we can do to find if ratios are proportional or form proportions is we multiply both terms of one ratio by the same number and get the second ratio. Because the ratios are equal, they do form a proportion. Let's look at example 2. A grocery store sells 3 oranges for $4 or for 49 cents and a bag of a dozen oranges for $2. Are these price rates equal? What we can do is make a table of equal ratios to find the cost of a dozen or 12 oranges at a rate of 3 for 49 cents. So where we have 3 oranges for 50 cents, it's equal to 12 oranges for $1.96. And this is less than $2 for a bag or a dozen of oranges. The prices are not equal rates, and they do not form a proportion. Let's go to the next section. Let's look at the guided practice. We have a question. Do 72 24ths and 8/3 form a proportion? What do you divide by 72? What do you divide 72 by to get 8? Well, 72 times 9 will give you 8. And then we have another question. What do you divide 24 by to give you 3? We have to answer question 3. Do the ratios form a proportion? Why or why not? And so look at the answer to that question. The answer is no. They do not. Form a proportion. Because we will not multiply by the same factor. All right, let's look at number 4. We have to say, do the ratios form proportions, yes or no? If we look at 21/3 in comparison to 7/1, if we divide by 3, we divide 21 by 3, we get 7. If we would divide 3 by 3, we get 1. So yes. What about 4/9 and 16/27? If I multiply 4 by 4, I get 16. But if I multiply 9 by 4, I get 36. So this is not a proportion. So no. What about 8/9 and 48/54? Well, if I divide or if I multiply 8 by 6, I'm going to get 48. And if I multiply 9 times 6, I'm going to get 54. So if we use multiplication for this one, it does show that it's a proportion. Okay, so if I'm looking at 30 tenths, if I divide 30 by 6, I'm going to get 5. But if I divide 6, or if I divide 10 by 6, that isn't going to work out. So no, these do not form a proportion. So number 8 says, there are 5 boys and there are 4 girls. Okay, and they want to know if 20 girls to 5 boys is true. Use this information to write a proportion. Well, if I'm looking at 5/4 and I'm comparing it, I have to compare boys to boys. So if I were to say, because right now we're looking at boys to girls and girls to boys. So if I were to say 25 boys and then invert to 20 girls, let's see, we would come up with 5 times 5 is 25, and then 5 times 4 is 20. The information is true. The ratios do form a proportion, but we have to compare girls to girls and boys to boys. Let's look at the next section. Please answer this question. Use your answer sheet to check the correct response. Which ratio forms a proportion with 5/6? A, 6/5, B, 20/3 or 20/30ths, C, 24 or 20/24ths, D, 24/20ths.